Hey guys, welcome to my channel on Let's Decode the Hindu. Here we'll be discussing articles relevant from pages of editorial Oped International and Business. And apart from that, the all relevant articles on UPSC perspective are given in the PDF format in the description box. And the relevant timestampings are also provided in the description box for the easier navigation. And now let's go into the session. Stop the return to laissez-faire. This article talks about how the employers who wants the state to reintroduce laissez-faire system and the system of indenture for the organized workers to which will take away the protection conferred on organized laborers by the parliament is being discussed, which means to say that the employers are trying to reintroduce a system of laissez-faire and the system of indenture, where the meaning of laissez-faire is that the non-interference of the government in the free playing market, and the system of indenture means a system of a bond or an agreement. So currently the workers' rights to go home has been curbed using the Disaster Management Act of 2005, and the temporary stop for all labor statutes including laws on maternity benefits and gratuity, the Factories Act of 1948, the Minimum Wages Act of 1948, the Industrial Establishments Act of 1946 and Trade Unions Act of 1926 are all being temporarily suspended. So if we look back into the history, the move is representing the Bengal Regulations of 7 in 1819 for British planters in Assam tea estates, where the workers had to work under a 5-year contract and desertion was made punishable. And also the Transport of Native Labourers Act 1863 was passed in Bengal, which strengthened control of the employers on the labourers, where it detained the labourers in the district of employment, and they also being imprisoned for the months of 6 months. And also the Bengal Act of 6 of 1865 is used to deploy special immigration police to prevent labourers from leaving or escaping, or who tries to return to their homeland, so they are being returned to the plantation after detention. So later the factory workers had protested, and this protest had led to the Factories Act of 1911, which introduced the working hour for 12 hours shift. So the workers' demand, supported by political leaders, which made the Britain forces to appoint the Royal Commission on Labour and submitted its report in 1935. So there arose the Government of India Act 1935, which enabled greater representation of Indians in lawmaking process. So this resulted in reforms and indentured plantation labour saw relief in the form of Plantation Labours Act of 1951. So if we have a look on what the dignity had been provided through democracy, is that the Factories Act, if we look into, which gives 8 hours work shifts with overtime wages, weekly offs, leave with wages, and measures for health, hygiene and safety. And the Industrial Dispute Acts provides the workers' participation to resolve wages and other disputes through negotiation, so that the strikes or lockouts and unjust retrenchments and dismissals are avoided. So this had been discussed in Industrial Disputes Act. And if we look into the Minimum Wages Act, it ensures wages below which is not possible to subsist, which means to say that the wages as per the prescription should be given and below wages should not be provided, and also had been strengthened by the directive principles of state policies prescribed in the Constitution of India, and also protected by the rights to life and right against exploitation under the article of 21 and 23. So if we look into the Supreme Court's verdict on the case of Glaxo Laboratories versus the Presiding Officer Labor of 1983, the court held the judgment about the Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act of 1946, where it says that in the days of laissez-faire, when industrial relations were governed by the harsh weighted law of hire and fire, the management was supreme master and the laborers were unequals. So this describes about the earlier situation in the historic time during the British India time. And it states that during this developing notion of social justice and the rising economic justice necessitated statutory protection to the unequal partner in the industry. So the movement was from status to contract, so the contract being not left to be negotiated by two unequal persons by statutorily imposed, which means to say that two unequal persons are now being protected and being imposed on statutory terms. Parallelly, if we see, the constitutional goals of Parliament also did not delegate any power for exemptions to the executives, and also in Section 5 of the Factories Act, it empowers the state governments to exempt only in the case of public emergencies. And also that to the public emergency, which means the problem faced or created by internal or external aggressions, and that to this pandemic is not of that case. And if we take the point where the Section 36B of Industrial Dispute Act enables exemption for government industries only if the provision exists for investigation and settlements. Currently being in the situation where the concern is that the orders of state government are lacking statutory support, the labor being a concurrent subject in the constitution, but the most pieces of labor legislation are of central enactments. And if we look into the other judgment from Supreme Court, where the Life Insurance Corporation versus DJ Bahadur and ORS 1980, it states that the changes in condition of service can be only through a democratic process of negotiation or legislation. Rejecting the central government's attempt to unilaterally deny bonus means fundamental errors can be avoided only by remembering fundamental values, as otherwise there would be lawless hiatus, which means to say that the legislation need to get scrutinized through the democratic process of negotiation or legislation. So as the way forward, the author says that in the unequal bargaining power between capital and labor, the regulatory laws are providing countervailing balance and ensuring the dignity of the labor. So what the government has to do is that government, which is having the constitutional duty to ensure a just humane condition of work and maternity benefits, the health and strength of the workers cannot be abused by the force of economic necessity, is what the author prescribes. So the labor laws are thus a civilizational goal and cannot be trumped on excuse of pandemics. So as overall, this article emphasizes about the bargaining power between the capital and the labor, and the countervailing balance is the regulatory law, which should not be cancelled. And because this act as the backstop for the migrant laborers and other workers, states cannot be left to the center's mercy. This article primarily talks about the negative aspects of GST and how the states had been severely affected during this pandemic and have also lost its power, and its value had been gone down because of the income loss. So permitting the sale of alcohol during the lockdown is an unpopular move among the majority. So the question is that then why the popularly elected governments in the every state resorted to this move? The answer is basically the implementation of GST on July 1st of 2017. Now let us see where the states had been affected and the three corners where the states are severely affected, which is namely where the payment due from the center on the amount of the GST share dividend, which are yet to be returned from the center, and also the center being not in a helpful situation with additional resources and the states also bearing the brunt of the pandemic's impact. So the stroke of midnight on the July 1st of 2017 launched the GST, where the states were now stuck to the center's neck forever. The GST forced the states to surrender their powers to raise resources independently through local states taxes and place them entirely at the mercy of center for most of their financial needs. So basically, if we see, the states raise resources through the combination of their own taxes and a share in center's taxes. So if we see the states of Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, Delhi, Karnataka, Punjab, Haryana and Kerala, around 70% or more as a revenue comes from the taxes generated within their state's boundaries, from the sources like the sales of goods and services within the state, and the remaining half from the combination of excise duties on petrol, electricity, alcohol, land registration fees, etc. So, if we have a look before GST, the states were free to charge sales taxes as legislated by their state legislatures. That too during the natural disasters. They could raise additional resources for rehabilitation by raising sales taxes rates on goods and services provided within the state. But after GST was enacted, the states were also guaranteed a minimum tax revenue every 5 years for a period every year for the period of 5 years. So the states are blown with these triple problems. The other options which are left to them being the taxes on sales of petroleum products, alcohol, lottery tickets, electricity, land, or vehicle registrations. But now, even if we take the demand for petroleum products, electricity, land, and vehicles had dwindled, and the sale of alcohol is the only option the state have. So, given the current situation, the states can borrow money only if the center approvals to raise their borrowing limit or to stand as guarantors. Rates of borrowing are also very high, and their ability to borrow is severely undermined. And also, this depends on the center to borrow funds from the market. So, if we take or assume the situation of the pre GST era, the first point we can say that the states would have had the funds being raised through sales taxes to themselves. Second point would they have would they and the states would have raised taxes on select essential goods sold in the states, for example like the fruits and other oil productions, in accordance with their norms. So the resources need to fight this disease should also be raised locally. So the major issue of concern is that the idea of one nation one tax is deeply flawed in economically and politically divergent India. The democratically elected state governments, as per the author's view, he says that it cannot be expected to govern with no fiscal powers. And the five states accounting for half of all GST collections in the country is facing a big challenge in the very idea of GST. Lockdown syndrome. This article describes and talks about how a good policy will revive the economy quicker. So the statistic shows that index of industrial production IIP had contracted by 16.7% in March, contrast to the growth rate of 2.7%, which is seen during the same month last year. So the sectors which is severely affected is the manufacturing sector, around 20% of contraction, and the end goods, capital goods, and consumer durables witnessed a roughly one-third contraction in size as the sales of non-essential goods has also been reduced. Some estimates suggest that economy's overall output in the first quarter of financial year 21 could be cut by one-fourth, and growth for the full financial year can be even in negative terms. And the point should be noted that the financial year 20 financial year 20's AIP growth was set to post a weak show even before the lockdown. So this was even predicted as low before the lockdown was announced. So as the way forward, revival depends only on the policy environment created by the government after the crisis. And the key will lie in the implementation of these measures. One for the poor. This article talks about the current prevailing situation of COVID-19 and how the economic situations are getting revived through the government's decision, and what are the suggestions can be given to the government's decision is also added in this article. Government's decision to extend MG Nareka scheme is a welcome move as migrant workers are largely dependent on that, but they have to ensure that it is being paid time on time. A waiver or extension of 100-day limit per household is also a suggestion. Migrants who are stranded and the non-beneficiaries of the National Food Security Act or any of the states act has to be provided by the government's promise program, where it promised to give 5 kg of food grains per person and 1 kg of chana per family per month for 2 months. This covers around 67% of the population. And also the suggestion is that it could have extended this program into the public distribution system coverage to include more people who are suffering from loss of jobs, livelihoods, besides the government migrant workers. So the One Nation, One Ration Card scheme is to allow the migrant access anywhere, any fair price shop across the country, which will be implemented by March 2021. But this has been sparingly utilized by only migrants, and the concerns in the states like Tamil Nadu, where the PDS is near universal and yet to be addressed. Keeping Asia Pacific afloat. This article describes about the marine pollution which are prevalent in the region of Asia Pacific seas. So the seas provide food, livelihood, and a sense of identity, especially for coastal communities in the Pacific Islands. The major concern is that the climate change and unsustainable resource management have degraded ecosystems and diminished biodiversity. The reason being that it's because of overfishing, marine plastic pollution. So the lack of data is providing a serious threat to the ongoing crisis. Accelerating regional actions for sustainable oceans in Asia and Pacific is the theme study of this year's Economic and Social Commission for Asia and Pacific, which is named as ESCAP. In that, it states that 2 out of 10 are available on targets for Sustainable Development Goals 14, which is namely the life below water. Information gaps had caused by the limitations in methodology and national statistical systems. The statistics is that Asia and Pacific produces nearly half of global plastic by volume, whereas it consumes around 38%. The plastics production getting generated gases of CO2, where it is getting absorbed by the oceans and it enters the ocean as pollution. The concern is that the percentage of stocks fished at unsuitable levels had increased threefold from 10% in 1974 to 33% in 2015. The data on fish stocks, fighting illicit fishing activities, and conserving marine ecosystems and areas are the must. So, the work with the shipping community to navigate green shipping and closing the maritime connectivity gap with small isolated islands and enforcing sustainable shipping policies is the need of the hour. Harnessing ocean statistics through strong national statistical system guides countries to monitor trends and devise timely responses and clear blind spots. So, as the way forward, what the author says is that this organization ESCAP is working with member states to implement International Maritime Organization IMO requirements. So basically, the translation of the international agreements and standards into national action is also the key to protect the biodiversity. Thank you guys for watching the video, and that's the end of today's news analysis. And the relevant fact check points and know abouts are being written down in the last page of the PDF and being given in the description box. And please do like, share if you like the video, and please do subscribe. Thank you.